A narcissist's ability to stay with you and to maintain the shared fantasy with you is directly proportional to your receptiveness to reprogramming. So all throughout the abuse cycle, the narcissist follows the same pattern. It's idealization, devaluation, discard, and sometimes a hoover. So the idealization stage of the relationship is when they're love bombing you. They're giving you the attention, the affection, they're mirroring you. They are idealizing you, and you're idealizing them, which creates the shared fantasy. And then the next part of their cycle is devaluation. That's where they're criticizing you. They're using Darvo. They're stonewalling you. They're projecting onto you. They're trying to control you. And when you bring up concerns and you bring up things that need to be worked on in the relationship, they gaslight you. They're trying to control your reality. And what generally initiates the devaluation stage of the cycle is when you start to awaken. You start to wake up from the fantasy. You stop idealizing them. You stop believing the lies that they tell. You start seeing their character for what it really is. And the reason that they know you're seeing them for who they really are is because you start to behave differently. Even if you don't really recognize that you're behaving differently, they recognize it because it's a blow to their ego when you don't idealize them. From your point of view, you might be looking at it as the normal ups and downs of a relationship because you see it as a relationship. You think about the dynamic as a relationship. But from the narcissist perspective, it's really not a relationship. You're a supplier. You're someone they use to feel good about themselves. They want to be superior. They want to be idealized. And you are a means to an end. And from a certain point of view, you as a person are inconsequential. You're replaceable. And they can get a stranger off the street to play the role that they've relegated you to. They've relegated you to a role within their fantasy. They're the director. They choose the cast. They write the script. And they want you to perform. And the purpose of the performance is not a relationship. It's not reciprocity. It's not a connection or a mutual beneficial love. The purpose of the connection is to feed their supply, to feed their ego, and to build up their fantasy world, and to protect them from all of the emptiness and the shame and the pain that they feel. And when you're in that trauma bond, when you're in that hellish cycle, you slowly start to wake up after a while, depending on how long you are in that cycle with them. And people often wonder why certain narcissists stay with people for a long time if they always go through the devaluation and discard phase of the relationship, and how could a person not know for so long that they were with a narcissist? When you're in that cycle and you're going through those stages of idealization, devaluation, discard, and hoover, you have a tendency to mistake that cycle for normalcy, especially if you grew up in a toxic dynamic, family dynamic. You mistake that hellish cycle as something that's normal. But eventually, your ability to supply the narcissist with a feeling of superiority, over time, it diminishes. Your ability to do that diminishes because you see them more clearly. That's the point of disillusion. When you become disillusioned to the fantasy world and you enter, if you were in a relationship with a narcissist for a long time, especially decades, this will resonate with you because there's a point where you enter into this realism within the relationship where you see this person for who they truly are. You recognize their limitations, and yet you go with the relationship despite the fact that you see this person as broken, and you see that this relationship is not what you want it to be, but you try to work it out anyway. You've left the fantasy at that point, and the narcissist resents you for that. Now, if they can reprogram you through gaslighting, projection, triangulation, where they're using other people to get you under control, alienation, if they can use all these tactics, gaslighting, if they can use those tactics to reprogram you and to get you to idealize them again, then that will get them to a point where they feel regulated. But if they can't get you to drink the Kool-Aid, if they can't get you to re-idealize them and buy into the fantasy and immerse yourself into the role that they've relegated you to, if they're not able to do that, then that's when they discard you. And to enter back into the fantasy after you see what can't be unseen, it would be analogous to trying to believe in Santa Claus again. It's like, once you know that Santa Claus is not real, you can't go back to believing that. You know, you've seen the relationship from a different paradigm, and you can't re-enter the fantasy world. That's the point of disillusionment. And once you reach that point, a discard is inevitable.